I was turning 18, and I couldn't shake the feeling that no one cared. It wasn't just that I wasn't expecting anything for my birthday, it was like I felt like no one would care if I disappeared altogether. Growing up, I always felt like the odd one out in my family. My older sister was the star, the one everyone fawned over. She was beautiful, smart, and talented, and my parents never let me forget it. My younger brother, too, was a favorite. He was the baby of the family, and my parents doted on him. They took him on special trips, bought him expensive gifts, and praised his every accomplishment. I, on the other hand, was average at best. I got decent grades, but I wasn't at the top of my class like my sister. I played sports, but I was never a star player. I had a few close friends, but I was never the life of the party. My mom, in particular, never seemed to care much about me. She always favored my sister and brother, showering them with attention and praise. I remember one time when I was about 10, my mom came to watch me play soccer. I was so excited to show her what I could do, but when I looked over at the sidelines, all I saw was my mom chatting with another mom, not even paying attention to the game. It wasn't just the lack of attention that hurt, though. It was the way my mom treated me differently from my siblings. My sister and brother got away with everything, staying out late, talking back, breaking curfew, while I was held to a higher standard. My mom would yell at me for the slightest infraction, even if my sister or brother had done the same thing a dozen times before. As I got older, I learned to accept that I would always be the least favorite child, but as my 18th birthday approached, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. This was supposed to be a big milestone, a day to celebrate my coming of age, but instead, I felt like I was just marking time, waiting for the day when I could leave this house and never look back. Then, one day, my mom confirmed what I had always suspected. "Don't expect anything for your birthday," she said, without even looking up from her book. "You're the least favorite child, after all." I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I had always known deep down that my mom didn't care about me as much as she did about my sister and brother. But to have it confirmed so bluntly a week before my 18th birthday felt like a betrayal. I spent the next few days trying to tell myself that it didn't matter, that I didn't need anyone else's validation to be happy, but deep down I knew that I was lying to myself. I wanted someone, anyone, to tell me that I was special, that I was worth something, but no one did. And as my birthday approached, I knew that it was going to be just like every other day, a day when I was invisible, a day when I was the least favored child. On the morning of my birthday, I woke up feeling more depressed than ever. I could hear my sister and brother in the kitchen, laughing and joking with my parents. I knew that they probably didn't even remember my birthday, but I couldn't bring myself to care. It was just another reminder that I was the outsider in my own family. I dragged myself out of bed and trudged downstairs, half hoping that my family would surprise me with something, but mostly resigned to the fact that nothing was going to happen. As I walked into the kitchen, my mom looked up from the stove and gave me a small smile. "Happy birthday," she said, as if it were an afterthought. I mumbled thanks and sat down at the table, staring down at my cereal. My sister and brother were still chattering away, oblivious to my misery. I wanted to scream at them, to tell them how much it hurt to be the outsider, but I knew it wouldn't make any difference. They would never understand what it was like to be me. As I finished my breakfast, my mom got up from the table and walked over to me. "Listen," she said in a low voice, "I know I haven't been the best mom to you. I know I favored your sister and brother over you, and I'm sorry, but I want you to know that I do love you, even if I don't always show it." I looked up at her, surprised. I had never heard my mom apologize before, let alone acknowledge that she had treated me differently from my siblings. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things were going to be different from now on. But then my mom ruined it all by adding, "Just don't expect anything special for your birthday, you know how it is." I felt the same punch in the gut that I had felt a few days ago. It was one thing to be the least favorite child, but it was another thing entirely to have my mom rub it in my face on my birthday. I got up from the table, feeling sick to my stomach, and went back to my room. I spent most of the morning moping around my room, feeling sorry for myself. I didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want to see anyone. I just wanted to be alone. But then, around midday, something changed. I don't know what it was exactly. Maybe it was the realization that I didn't need anyone else's validation to be happy. Or maybe it was the stubbornness that had always been a part of me. But suddenly, I knew what I had to do. I got up from my bed and started rummaging through my closet, pulling out old clothes and toys that I didn't use anymore. I found an old photo album and started flipping through it, tears streaming down my face. I saw pictures of myself as a little girl, smiling and laughing, and I realized that there had been a time when I had been happy. I spent the rest of the day working on my project. I glued pictures onto construction paper, wrote out little notes, and carefully wrapped everything in tissue paper. I didn't know if it would make any difference, but I knew I had to try. As the sun started, To set, I walked into the kitchen, holding my carefully wrapped packages. My mom looked up at me, surprised. "What's all this?" she asked. "I know you said not to expect anything for my birthday," I said, my voice shaking. "But I wanted to give you something instead." I handed her the packages, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. My mom looked down at them, then back up at me. As my mom looked through the packages, I could see her face growing redder and redder with embarrassment. She didn't say anything for a long moment, but then she finally spoke up. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to hurt you, I don't know." I nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I didn't want to fight with her, not now. But then, something inside me shifted. I had been holding on to this hurt for so long, but now I realized that I didn't have to take it anymore. I didn't have to let her words define me. "I'm moving out," I said suddenly, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "Today, I found an apartment and everything is all set. The deal will go through tomorrow." My mom's expression changed instantly, and I could see the rage building in her eyes. "You can't just leave like that," she said, her voice rising. "You have a family here. You can't just abandon us." But I stood my ground. I was tired of being the one who was always left behind, always forgotten. "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said firmly. "I'm a legal adult now. I'm doing what's best for me, and for once, I'm not going to let anyone make me feel guilty about it." I could feel my family staring at me, shocked and appalled by my words. The rest of them had come down too, but I didn't care. I had finally found my voice, and I was going to use it. There was a stunned silence in the room, and for a moment, no one spoke. But then my mom started to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. Maybe things wouldn't always be this way. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal our relationship and move forward. But for now, all I knew was that I was taking control of my life, and that felt pretty damn good." Update: 2 months later. Becoming completely financially independent was a big deal, especially for someone my age. I had been working towards this goal for years, saving every penny I could, and making small investments here and there. But the road to independence was not an easy one. There were countless hours of research, late nights crunching numbers, and even a few tears shed along the way. But I persevered, determined to make my dream a reality. It all started when I got my first job. I was determined to save as much money as possible. So I lived frugally and put every spare dollar into high-yield savings accounts. Over time, the money started to add up. And then there were the sacrifices. I missed out on countless dinners with friends, skipped out on trips, and even put off buying new clothes. I stuck to the bare essentials, but it was all worth it in the end. My siblings tried to reach out to me at times. Their attempts were sincere, but other times it felt like they were just going through the motions. My brother, who had always been distant, suddenly started calling me every week. He would ask me how I was doing, what I was up to, but my good sense was that he wasn't interested in my answers. It felt like he was just going through the motions of being a good sibling, but didn't care about my life or my achievements. On the other hand, my sister was more genuine in her attempts to reach out to me. She was genuinely proud of me for saving up enough money to leave and live comfortably at such a young age, and she wanted to celebrate my success with me. We would go out to lunch or have a movie night, and for a brief moment, I felt like we were close again. But then there were times when my sister's support felt conditional. If I didn't agree with her on a certain topic or didn't follow her advice, she would become distant and cold. It was like she was only willing to support me as long as I did everything her way. Overall, I appreciated my siblings' attempts to reach out to me, but it was clear that our relationship was not what they used to be. It was difficult to navigate the ups and downs of our interactions, but I was determined to stay focused on my goals and not let their opinions or actions affect me too much. My parents hadn't tried to reach out to me, and I kind of expected it. NTA. OP's mom telling her not to expect anything for her birthday, as she was the least favorite, was a move. Some people shouldn't be parents. What the hell did she do? Bloody middle child syndrome. Her mother couldn't even give a good enough reason for not treating her properly. It's a good thing she's out of there. OP is NTA. Next story. My wife, 41, female, and I, 41, male, live with our 2 kids, both under 6, quite close to my parents, who are in their late 60s. People usually assume we'd have free babies sitting on tap, but to be honest, we've had a choppy history with them over the years, with suggestions we're not doing the best for our kids or drinking too much. Obviously, we dispute this. We both have good jobs, live within our means, and don't drink much, and pretty much never around our kids. As a result, we have a courteous but not particularly close relationship with them. We try to keep to ourselves whilst ensuring our kids see their grandparents relatively often, once or twice a week. Anyway, we had a moment last week with my mother. Aware, we told them about a family holiday we booked for the four of us. It's a 3 to 4 hour flight to a 4-star, all-inclusive hotel. It's in a place we've been to before, as have my parents. And my mother's first question was, "And is this place child-friendly?" My face dropped for a split second in shock, and immediately I tried to defuse the situation with a joke. "Oh no, it's terrible for kids. Running chainsaws, swinging off ropes, it's lethal." My wife said something similar. "Nope, it's a swingers resort." Now bear in mind, this was very jokey. We didn't raise our voices or give any angry vibes whatsoever. But my mother immediately took offense to us barking at her and ridiculing her. Along with tears, she insisted it was a perfectly valid question, and she didn't deserve to be shot down over it. At this point, with my mother, I usually give in, but given she's in therapy at the moment, I turn the question back at her. "What did you mean by that? Do you seriously mean to ask if my wife and I could have chosen a non-child-friendly hotel for our family holiday?" She didn't answer that directly, just continued to tear up and say she didn't say that at all. Because from our perspective, my mother has never had a single positive thing to say about us as parents, and when we decide to tell her about our first family holiday to another country as a family of 4, she asks if we've picked a child-friendly hotel, as if being child-friendly wouldn't be the first thing we'd seek in such a holiday. My mother refused to accept this point, and what's more, my sister, 37, who has no children and no experience over parents' judgment on her parenting, decided to wade in and say it was a perfectly normal question she'd ask of any of her friends with kids. Is asking parents whether their family vacation hotel is child-friendly a legitimate question or one we will rightly take offense? As I've said, initially we decided to mask that offense with humor, but obviously this didn't change anyone's stance, and what's more, now my mother feels validated by my sister's bizarre agreement with her assertion. The question seems fairly innocuous. Part of making conversation, given your perception of your mom's motives based on past history, perhaps you projected a deeper meaning onto it. You assume a slight in the absence of direct insult. However, your mother's dramatics upon hearing your response is telling. One does not usually act defensive on her unless they have a reason to deflect. This seems most likely to be a case of poor communication exacerbated by years of improper interpersonal understanding. "Nah, NTA. I would have replied in the same fashion. Don't understand why you maintain a relationship with people you clearly don't like, though. Next story, long story short, my mother-in-law, 70, seems to me to be suffering from some kind of early onset memory issues. This has been ongoing for at least 5 years. I've spoken to her about it, and my husband has spoken to her about it, but she just says it's normal for her age. It's not. She'll sometimes agree to go see a doctor, but by the time she gets home, she's forgotten she agreed, and we just have the same conversations over and over. I'm actually not sure exactly how much she forgets and how much she pretends because it's easier. Note, I've told my husband he needs to fly to see her and take her to her doctor, but he doesn't. At a point, she's not my mother, and if neither her nor my husband are willing to look after her health, how much more should I do? She has a lot of trouble connecting with our boys. She desperately wants to, but won't listen to our suggestions and just does her own thing. Like, she's bought 3 of the same board games for our 3-year-old, 1 per year since he was 1. That's 8 and up, and gets frustrated that he can't play. She also always says, "Soon you can come and visit Grandma, and we'll have so much fun," to my boys. That's obviously never happening. The only time I've asked her to keep an eye on my 3-year-old, she forgot and wandered off, leaving him unattended. After 10 minutes, I was nearby and noticed, so I got him. He was never in danger, but I don't trust her to be a responsible adult. I always just make a non-committal sound, but I do think if I said I would never even consider it if she doesn't see a doctor about her memory, so we have an idea of what's going on and what to expect. It may be the motivation she needs to go, but it feels manipulative and petty when I won't allow it anyway. What do you think, Wibta? YW and BTA. If her memory is as bad as you say, she probably won't even remember your conversation in a couple of days, but I would really push your husband to either fly out or appoint someone else to help his mother get to the doctor. Early intervention can make a difference when it comes to slowing the progression of dementia and extending lifespan. And there's a good chance your mother-in-law is not only in denial of her dementia, but is unaware of how bad it is because, dementia. This could be a life or death issue for your mother-in-law, whether she recognizes it or not. If your husband loves and values his mother, he needs to get on this like yesterday. NTA, but you say she's 70, but also that her memory issues are early onset. That's incorrect. She's at the age when the signs of dementia are expected to start showing themselves. My dad was diagnosed at 72, and my mom at 67. Early onset dementia is when it happens before the age of 65. It might seem like I'm splitting hairs here, but it's important that you understand this, because no part of you should be thinking she's too young. It can't be dementia. She's exactly the age these things tend to start, and you and your family need to take it seriously. Why WBTA for saying it just to make her go? If her memory is this bad, what's going to happen is that she'll be upset at the moment, forget the conversation, and then still not go. There's a thing with dementia patients called therapeutic lying. For example, if the patient's husband is dead and she asks where he is, you don't tell her he's dead because that will upset her to no purpose. Instead, they'll tell her he'll be here in a little while, and then she'll forget it anyway, and it keeps her calm. Your non-committal sound is the right instinct. I think keep doing that. I spaced that out because I'm going to give this an NTA because so far you have not been an a-hole, and I think your husband is kind of being one. You're right. He does need to fly out and take her to the doctor. She's not going to go on her own. Husband may be in denial himself and not want to admit how bad it is, but he needs to step up here.